folks, this is the second video of the EcoEvolutionary talks. I'm Cíntia Freitas, postdoc fellow at the Universidade Federal do Paraná under the PRINT program, a CAPS program. So I'm going to talk about today of a second paper I published during my PhD. I hope you like it. So again, if you have any doubts, just leave a comment behind below here, and this is my email if any of you want to talk to me. So today I'm talking about another paper called Restriction Limits and Main Drivers of Fruit Production in Palms of Central Amazonia. And here's the whole reference. So do you remember that graph from the last video, where the black bars represent the abundance of Thalia microcarpa in at the valleys, sandy soil, and here in the hilltops with the gray bars we see Athaleoides, in the places that are much more composed by clay instead of sand. So how those two species were restricted to the extremes of the altitudinal gradient. And I was interested in this particular study and the environmental factors that limit the distribution of those two and 7 more palms, and a total of 9 species of palms. Just a quick background here. So mass effects and sources sink dynamics are 2 important concepts in local ecology. So here we have a plant that produce large amounts of seeds. They produce large amounts of seeds, okay, and the seeds might reach places where the plant cannot contribute to the seed production due to the unsuitable conditions, for example. So seeds can even reach places where the plant do not grow enough. It's smaller plant right here and here. So mass effect is when that amount of fruit production is large enough to spread the seeds to the periphery of the distribution area into sites where might not have the conditions for full development of the individual. So right there, for example, this phenomena might help the species to spread their distribution. Now, in the case, right here. So however, sites that do not present the suitable characteristics, the suitable features to allow the full development of the species are called sink sites or sink areas, like this one, for example. The species doesn't even grow there. It will grow to adult stages. And the sites where the fruits are produced in large amounts are called source sites. So these are source sites. They are like fully developed adults that contribute to the population perpetuation with large amounts of fruits that, pressure the borders of the species distribution. And here, for example, is this individual, it might even grow, but the soil, the climate, it doesn't present the features, the variables, the characteristics that the species needs to produce fruits. And this surplus of fruits might even reach places where the species might just get to the seedling phase, for example. So this process is fully described in Schmid and Wilson, 1985, and it's a very nice concept to remember from undergrad course. So again, here we see the study area at Manaus, 30 kilometers from Manaus, Duke Forest, with 30 plots, Pepebu plots. So this in the opposite direction from the last video. This is an observational study. I didn't do any experiments with this one. Then I went every month in those 30 plots for 2 years to monitor all the individuals of the 9 species of palms for the presence and amount of fruit produced. And I also collected data on environmental factors such as amount of clay and sand, light, depth of the litter, and amount of different trees around the focal individual. So it was a lot of work and the field. So the first results, we see this table. So I use this regression tree to model the presence and absence of 9 species. Here are the 9 species. The 2 Atalias that you saw in the last video. Euterpe is açaí. Geonoma, it's a species from the understore. Eriartella, also the understore, and we have Bacaba and Patawa and Bacaba, and another species of the same genus, and Socrates, so he's a very rare species of palms in that area. In this table, we can see the probability of being restricted to the topoedaphic gradient, that we divide individuals in the whole population, adults and fruiting adults. So the difference between those two is that adults here we never see with fruits even after 2 years of monitoring every month. And P is the probability associated with the restriction limit, RL, and restriction limit is the value that we found the breakpoint between the populations. In the case population, the whole population, adults and fruiting adults, and the unit is measured in amount of clay. So very little clay means a lot of sand, and a lot of clay means little sand. And here we can see Atalia taleoides in this thing, showing a significant breaking point of the whole population at 4.27 amount of clay, percentage of clay content in the soil. So the remaining of the soil, it's a mix of sand and other stuff, and this represents at the very bottom of the valley. So the population of Atalia taleoides has a significant breakpoint very near from the bottomland. It doesn't get to the bottomland. So the adults fruiting, adults only, so this is the whole population. It could include seedlings, for example. The adults only reach 67.4 percentage of clay, and you can see that's all the way up to the hilltops. So the adults never ever get to the bottomlands, and at the same point we see adults fruiting. So even the individuals that occur near the bottomlands, they don't give fruits. Okay, so microcarp is opposite side, so it doesn't even get near to the to the hilltops. So we see 3 significant breakpoints. So the whole population and the adults fruiting can reach 12% of clay, or okay, but they only fruits very near to to the bottomlands near the water course at 6.15 amount of clay. So it doesn't like very much clay, it likes the sandy bottoms. So we see here another breakpoint in Geonoma spidifolia, and we see here also in Patawa, very restricted to the bottomlands, and also Bacaba, which it's the same thing basically from the Ataleoides. The species specialized in clay hilltops. The population gets to the bottomlands, but the adults and the adults that give fruits only reach 37% of clay, a little further down, but not that much down to the bottomlands. And again, another species that's extremely restricted to the bottomland. So we see here the changing composition of species, that it's really striking that area, but the striking part is the restriction of the population that actually give fruits. Okay, so I went further to analyze the influence of the distance to the water and other variables to the proportion of individuals fruiting. And this is the nicest graph I have. It's Atalia teleoides, and you see that as we get farther away from the water, it gets more fruits, even though it's not really it's not linear, of course, and we get some noise, some variation around here. Okay, and here is the mean of fruit. So remember that I measured the presence and absence of fruits, and also the amount of fruit. So I counted all the fruits in the palm, and the mean of fruits also increases, and it depends also the species. For example, this one is Atalia teleoides, and this one is Geonoma spidifolia. In Geonoma spidifolia, as much as we get far away from the water, not that away, comparing with the hilltop species, it gets less fruit. So if it likes to fruiting very near from the water, while Ataleoides get much more fruits away from the water, which is funny because we think that the Amazon forest is really homogeneous, and it's really not. There is a lot of heterogeneity and variation in the micro scale. Again, the amount of fruits in this case against nutrients, sum of bases, and also tree density. We see some weak relationships here, but here so you see here, for example, Geonoma spidifolia here giving less fruits uphill where there is more nutrients, which is a funny thing to find, but there must be something else that's modeling their amount of fruits near the bottomlands, which are the areas that are more poor in nutrients. Okay, so right there. So this concept of establishment here, let's go back to the beginning. In the last videos, we've been looking at the factors that affect palm species distribution in the Amazon. They are not dispersal limited, as we saw in the last video. Some of the main environmental gradients in the area are important in modulating their distributions, such as distance to the water, as we saw today, clay content and nutrients in the soil, and even inclinations as we saw in the last video, where the two Atalias germinated better in more inclined areas. But maybe the most important conclusion is that even if they are distributed in a large area, they do not produce fruits. See, are restricted here and here and here. So they do not produce fruits everywhere. So they obey a source sink dynamics where plants in the source area, for example here, give the surplus of seeds to areas where the adults cannot produce fruits. And this is the take home message from this paper. So this brings us to the concept of establishment. Think about your field of study. If a diaspora is found in a new site, would you suggest that the distribution area of your study species should be larger? What if that small diaspora established but would never grow and reproduce? So Johnson Connell uses sign of establishment, the seedling phase, the small plant with two leaves that emerged from the seed. But if that seedling will grow to a full reproductive adult and contribute to the perpetuation of the population, only the time will tell, right? So true establishment for plants is when it can produce fruits. Individuals that do not produce fruits, do not produce dispersal forms, represent sink populations. So that's the end. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. I hope you like it. See you next time.